live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to hashtag No Limits. I'm your host, Shelly Kino. Hashtag No Limits is about people that society puts limits on, but who have busted through those limits. Ophelia said in Hamlet, "We know what we are, but not who we may be." I believe this to be true and that there is no better example than the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. The caterpillar literally dissolves into its cells and reforms as a butterfly. As the butterfly emerges from the cocoon, it has to struggle in order for its wings to be strong enough to fly. Obviously, this is no easy process, but neither is breaking through limits that society has set upon a person. But just like the caterpillar, when we believe in ourselves, we can accomplish more than others might think. If we have a support system around us to encourage and facilitate our growth, even better. One area where I have seen societal and educational limits is on children who are nonverbal and who have a specific learning disability. And that brings me to my guest today, my friend, Courtney Burnett. Courtney is a mom, wife, SLPA, entrepreneur, fellow master IEP coach, escape room attendee, escapee, and a bill maker. Welcome, Courtney, and thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I love that both of our logos are butterflies, but I've never heard it broken down like that. I was drawn to the butterfly because it's one of the symbols of cerebral palsy, which my daughter has. But seeing you break down the process there, I think it's kind of unique and fun that we both kind of are attracted to the butterfly. So that was fun.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you like that. Yeah, the butterfly, just when I learned about how the caterpillar goes to the butterfly, I was like, oh my gosh. And whoever would have thought that a little squirmy caterpillar would turn into a majestic butterfly?
Exactly.
And that's the whole purpose of the hashtag No Limits, is because we never know what tomorrow holds. And we certainly don't know what 5 years or 10 years down the road holds for anybody, whether that's, somebody who doesn't have a disability, who's, could end up with one for various reasons, or someone who has a disability and then, because of advances and pushing through things that blockades that people have put in front of them or that they have in front of them because of their own disabilities. It's amazing. I've seen so many of my students change so drastically in the amount of time that I've known them. It's just a wonderful thing. So, Courtney, you talked about your daughter. Tell us more about yourself and your family.
Well, we live here in Arizona. We've been here a long time. It's weird to think about. So this really has become our home. My husband and I grew up in Seattle area, and we moved out here when our girls were 3 and 1. And now my daughter is 16 and 14. My daughters are 16 and 14. So it's kind of crazy. And through my daughter's journey, I started out as a preschool teacher. I worked at Head Start and ECAP and different state and federal programs for preschool. And then when my daughter was born, I started taking sign language classes. And then I started trying to take some other classes at the college. And my husband was like, hey, did you know there's actually like a whole degree in that? You can get a certificate, and there's a job shortage in that field. And so it kind of morphed into me taking the classes to try to help my daughter. And then it ended up bringing me into a new career that I love. So I work as a speech assistant here in Arizona, and that's been an adventure, and it's a lot of fun. But over the last few months, it really has been an adventure adapting to telehealth and different things that my clients have needed. But we've come through. And you mentioned a bill. We worked on a bill here in Arizona that got passed in 2019 that is universal changing table for people. And it really speaks to what you were talking about earlier, how some people are born with a disability and some people through a car accident or different things are needed. And so this bill really addresses Oh, we're spinning. Oh, you have a picture. Oh, cool.
I found it on your Facebook page.
Yeah, this is a good one. That was the day where they took the vote. So we were waiting to see, but it really addresses the need for changing tables through, having babies and then through adulthood. And we even had some veterans come to us and say, hey, it's not something I really speak about. It's, very personal, but they need it as well. And so this would be in publicly funded buildings. There would be at least one accessible changing table that can hold up to, I believe, 300 pounds or something like that. So the verbiage is there. And then we're working on that. So we had an arena who wasn't affected by the bill actually put one in. And it was really sad because they put it in and we're getting ready to launch it. And then all this stuff started happening. So I think it got debuted for like a concert or a hockey game. And so I know when things resume, it will be waiting. And it was really, really exciting to have that. So that was really fun to use the different advocacy skills that we've learned and put them to use in that way. Because I think a lot of people, I don't know, I know I did, that it was complicated, that moms, what can I do to change it? And the truth is, we passed our bill in 90 days and that was really unheard of. Usually, this is what's crazy. Usually it takes about $1 million and 2 to 3 years to get something all the way through. We did not have $1 million. I know you're shocked.
No, you didn't just have that in your back pocket.
We did not. And and we were like, they're like, well, who you're lobbying with, and who are you lobbying for? And I was like, well, we're not lobbyists, we're moms. And then we became, that's what it is. You go down and you lobby for your cause. Right. And what was really cool is, I don't know if you have another picture up your sleeve, but there is one on my Facebook page where all of these families from across the state, I still get goosebumps, drove 3-4 hours to come, and they spoke at the different committees, and it was raining and we all gathered outside, and it like never rains here. And it was like pouring down rain in Arizona. We didn't care. We're like getting our picture, and there's all these families, and they had kids with varying needs and communication devices. And they came to the committee to have their voices heard. And so I do really encourage people to get involved in their local, city and state stuff, because you can make a difference it took on a life of its own that I didn't really anticipate. And then people were like, yes. And then people who had never thought about, I think that's another thing when it comes to different disabilities and different things that people have. If it doesn't personally affect you, I think it's easy to think that it's not a problem, or to just not be aware of it because it's not affecting you, Right. This was exciting. This was actually after the vote. So we just found out that it was going to get sent over. So it gets voted on one half and then gets sent over. So we're all really, really excited. So that brings back really good memories. So you can totally do it. And I think we just became a voice, but that's what we heard over and over again was, I never thought about that. And now that I know about it, because the thing that they didn't think about is, where do you change people who still need that type of assistance when the traditional bathroom no longer works for them? And when they found out that parents were changing them on dirty bathroom floors and laying down towels or different pads, or trying to change them in the back of our minivans. Some parents set up little personal tents at rest areas and all those different things. And then as my parents started taking care of my grandma, my mom started realizing what happens when you're out and you're trying to help your parent and they have an accident and different things that might happen. And so my mom started seeing this spectrum of, aging and then disability and coming back as a wounded vet and different things that it really affects a lot of people. And it just happened to be moms of kids with profound medical needs that were out kind of being the face of it. But behind the scenes, we were getting messages from husbands starting to take care of their wives as they age and saying, please fight for this. And then veterans are reaching out to us. So it was really cool. But to think that, I know we kind of got off track here, Shelley. I took over.
This is absolutely part of what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. And I think to tie it into a person who has a learning disability, who had trouble writing and spelling and all these things that I, for a very long time, let define. I was embarrassed or worried about spelling the wrong thing, putting the wrong thing. People would think I was dumb because that's something that kids would say in school. You're so dumb, and those things that people say really do stay with people.
Absolutely.
And I always teach my kids, like, words have power, because they really do. I'm almost 40 and I can still, like, let it go.
Right.
But it's still there. And so I think for me, like, writing for this, writing speeches, speaking in front of people, even so for me, like, a lot of people will have notes. I do have notes, but usually I can't read them because when I try to look down, my eyes have a really hard time tracking. So a lot of the times I just have to write it and then try to memorize it the best I can, because in the moment, that's going to actually mean nothing to me. So
right.
I can't look down and read it. And so speaking on a live stream, so it was anytime you go to a committee or down at the Capitol, it's streamed and archived. That's very intimidating that anybody in your state can log on and hear you at that exact moment, saying whatever you're saying. So it was a growth experience for sure, and overcoming even some of those things. But I had my daughter come, and she used her communication device. And at the end of my public comments, I asked if I could share some of my time with her. And she actually had a pre-recorded button of a message, and it said, please support this bill and give me dignity. And you could have heard a pin drop in that room when Hannah played it. And then it was really awesome because there was actually a special ed teacher there. So he was helping me with her as I was trying to speak.
That's fabulous.
And he just jumped right in. He's like, oh, I know this. Okay. And he had it like already for us. So that was really cool. And just really, again, saying you can do that. You don't have to say I'm just a mom or I'm just a dad or I can't do this or that. It's really whatever you decide you want to do. And you can set your mind to it. So it was really cool to get it passed and have such both sides of the aisle working together, which is pretty rare, no matter what state you're in.
Right, exactly.
And it was really cool to see how many minds that were opened up and even changed, because yes, there was this bill, but I really hope that when they're looking at other bills that they'll think of our kids and they'll think of the people that it's impacting in other ways with community planning and funding for other services that they use. Now they're going to have all these faces. And that's what I did. I printed off. So each kid held up, each person who was affected by not having a changing table made a sign, and then I went and printed them off, and then I put them in each legislator's box. So and when on voting day, one of them held up a picture of my friend's daughter, Macy, and said, this vote is for Macy, and she voted yes. And it was a vote that we weren't sure we would have because it was it's a bill that costs money. So anytime you're doing a bill that costs money, there can be some arguments there. So it was really great to see her hold up those pictures. And so really helping people put a face to the situation.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And as you were talking about, changing your child in the back of a van or something, that brought me back to my teaching days when I would take some of my students on field trips, excuse me. And I had some that needed to be changed. And we, trying to find a place to change them. And I would often drive my own vehicle because I have a van. And then when we could take a break, we would go to my van and we would change the students because there just wasn't the right facility anywhere near us in order to be able to do that. So
I have a little visitor. Sorry.
that's okay.
Okay, go ask that. I'm streaming live right
No, I don't want to ask him to get on.
now. Okay, I can't help you right now.
I don't want
So if your kids are doing online learning from home, you can start to understand everything going on here. I have a dog, 3 kids learning online, all these great stuff happening.
So is school back in session in Arizona?
It is.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we're kind of on a semi year round.
Oh, okay.
So we actually were supposed to be back in July, and then it got pushed back. So I don't know why we start. No one understands. It's like it's 115, 118. No one knows. And so we kind of have 2 weeks spring break, 2 week fall break, 2 week, and then like kind of almost like a 6 to 8 week summer versus like the 10. So so the governor pushed it back, and then people started online, and then we're kind of we're starting online, hopefully in person. And we're kind of in a waiting game. They're supposed to be releasing these matrix today or tomorrow about the safety, whatever needs to be in place for in person. And so schools are kind of like, okay, we're going to get started because they already adjusted their calendars once. So then we just started with online, and then they're like, and we'll keep you posted. And we're kind of like in this holding game of that.
Yeah.
So it's an adventure.
Yeah. I have family in Indiana, and they went back to school this week. They started on Monday. And I haven't had a chance to talk to them. I'll be talking to them tomorrow night, and I'm curious to see how it's going and what my niece has to be doing when she's in class and all that kind of stuff. As I was running an errand this morning, I drove by a daycare in our area, and the kids were all outside playing on the equipment, and they were definitely not social distancing. So I thought, well, I guess if they can do it there, I guess they can do it in person at school. But I don't know.
It's been a hot topic for sure, because the daycares have been open because some people need to go to work, so it has to be somewhere to going. So that's definitely, and some of the schools are being used as childcare. So that's definitely fueling some arguments for some parents of, hey, if it can be open for that. So so it's definitely an adventure. And
absolutely.
I think the hardest one really is, and kind of goes into my daughter, is that working her IEP, and even though the school is trying, so I think it's important I can't speak for every school, but I think most schools, most teachers are trying. It's just for Hannah, my daughter needs one-on-one support. Mm-hmm. She's in a self-contained classroom with 2 to 3 aides plus a teacher, with interventions that happen very one-on-one support. So for her, it doesn't really, anything they put on the Google Classroom, we're going to have one-on-one support. So it's going to be, that's the struggle a lot of families are having right now, is if the parents are working and the child needs one-on-one support, how are we really getting them that support when they're supposed to be in school? So that's something that is happening a lot in my area right now, a lot of discussion about and getting creative. And I think that's also nerve-wracking for the schools to do stuff they've never done before. And how do you keep your staff safe and support the kids that need it?
Right.
So,
yeah. And now you as an SLPA, do you have your own business, or do you work for school districts, or who employs you?
So I have worked for a school district. I did for a long time. I really enjoyed it. And there was definitely some benefits of working the school district schedule, having summers off, where I did end up going to, so it's kind of unique. So I'm contracted. I have my own business. I have an LLC. I'm contracted with an agency whose contracted with the Department of Disability. So certain companies go and make the bids for doing all the requirements for the state to have to be a vendor, essentially. And then I'm employed by a vendor, which is great because I have my own business, but the company does the billing and the processing and pays me, and I'll have to do that part. And then the kids here in Arizona have the Department of Disability here in Arizona is actually ranked pretty high, and I think it's the top 5 in the country for how they use their Medicaid dollars, Medicaid and Medicare. Those are the 2 funding forms for anyways. For how Arizona does it for children who have a permanent and lifelong disability. So Hannah has access to habilitation, where a provider will come in and work on goals for her life skills. We have access to therapies that are provided through that payer on a weekly basis, which is really phenomenal. And because of Hannah's severity, she's covered at 100% through that payer here in Arizona. So for us, moving here was really quite a blessing because of the fact of how that is set up here in this state. So other people, they might call it a waiver or different things. So we don't necessarily have a wait list, but we have a shortage of providers. So, because it is, as I'm a contractor, a lot of the caregivers are contracted. So it doesn't come with the stability of sick leave and vacation and a lot of that. So it's hard to find long-term people who want to work with you long-term, because a lot of times, and it's part of it I love, I've had really great luck with college students. So we'll have a 4-year run. And because for a lot of them, most of the time they work with my daughter, particularly before or after school. So they could go do their college classes and then come and be a provider. So if they're in school to be an occupational therapist, speech therapist, a special ed teacher, a nurse, this is actually a really good job for them that a lot of them can really enjoy. And then it actually allows them to have some experience of saying, yeah, I have worked with a communication device. I have helped somebody in this way. So I've had good luck with, I raise them up and then they fly and they go do their career. And then I have to find another one, but it is a blessing. So every state has kind of their pluses and the minuses with that, for sure, of how it's set up with that. So I work my own schedule. I pick my zip codes, the days of the week I want to work. So the flexibility for me is essential, because that's what I was running in when I worked at the school district. Is my husband's a teacher and I worked there as well. So getting the kids to doctor's appointments, taking Hannah to all her stuff became quite a challenge, because some specialists only have openings they're only at this office on Tuesday. I know a lot of moms can relate. They come to that location on the second Thursday of the month. And so there's not necessarily a lot of give. So we were just kind of running into that, can take a half day or a full day. And even though I didn't have a sub, that's how the structure set up in most school districts. So it just became apparent that I needed a lot more flexibility. So what's great with the job I have is I work with kids who have articulation issues, language, to adults who are getting communication devices for the first time, who maybe only their parent or relative could understand them. And so it's really great. So I work with 3 through, I've had a 65-year-old on my caseload. And so getting them set up, and like you were saying, advances in technology and even access to education. So some of my adults were the first. This is crazy to think about, because if people don't know the history of our country and access to education, if you had a severe disability, they weren't allowed to go to school. And it's actually a crime if a parent tried to force it. So can you imagine? It's just wild to think about. I would have been arrested because of course I would want Hannah to go to school. And so you could actually be arrested for that. So some of my clients were the first kids allowed public education and went to school, but they didn't really know how to help them. So
Right.
they were allowed to go. So I think about, and that's what I had to really help some of my clients understand, that help their parents understand. So I have one client who his mom can understand him, but no one else can because of his such severe phonological processes, how he articulates these different things. It's really unintelligible unless you happen to know the topic and if you know him really, really well. So I had to help mom understand. And I think this is important for parents and caregivers as your child is aging. I said, what happens when you're no longer here and he loses his only communication partner? I was just like, oh, you're going to be like that? I was like, I'm just painting a picture of why it's important that we get him access to things that weren't available when he was a teenager, that weren't available.
Right.
iPads with apps and communication devices weren't available. So we got him started on one, got it qualified through the insurance and everything. And he took off like a rocket with it. And he's so proud of it. And just seeing him, and he likes to have cereal before bed. And so his mom told me that one night he got out his communication device and said, I would like cereal, please. And she was like, what? She was just kind of stunned. Then he went and got it, made his own sentence and everything. And I'm thinking that's what's so important, to be able to do that for anybody he's staying with, whoever. He goes to a day program to be able to communicate with his providers. So that's the kind of fun job I have in addition to being a master IEP coach and helping families navigate the school system. I also help families navigate the Department of Disability and Medicaid and getting devices approved and different things like that as well. So it's really morphed into that. And so I can really see things from a lot of different angles of having a daughter who's on an IEP, having a husband who's a gen ed teacher, and then me growing up on an IEP from second grade. And so kind of skip around a little bit, but to come back to that, I always tell people I'm a product of a dedicated teacher, a gen ed teacher who saw a pattern of things of saying, okay, Courtney knew this yesterday. She doesn't know it on Friday. Right. She knows it. I could only, so I was in second grade and could read 5 words.
Oh, wow.
Then they also discovered I had like I was saying, I went to eye therapy, which I don't even know if people know you can go to eye therapy, but I'm working
on telling people that a lot.
Yeah, I went to a specialist and found out my eyes did not track together. So they actually didn't move together. One would be on one line and my other eye would be on another line. So that was also contributing to my inability to learn to read. Is I would literally be trying to read 2 to 3 lines at a time. And my teacher would be like, we're on line 1. And I would be on like line 3 and I'd be reading. So the story wouldn't make sense either. Right. So she was able to, get me started on the process through an evaluation at the school district, get me qualified, and then get me supports. And so I was that student that was probably actually, for the most part, getting pretty good grades because of my willingness. Like I wanted to learn, I wanted to please the teacher, I wanted to do a good job. So even if it took me 5 hours, I would finish it. And then I would also become very frustrated when I got home. Like I had used up all my energy at school, trying to read, trying to do all the tasks. So I wasn't able to hold it together very well at home. And so my mom was like so relieved when she was like, I thought that we were struggling. We were practicing reading. We were doing the sight words and all of that. But really, because of my learning disability, it wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't retaining that. And so just really working through that with the school system was imperative. And then I actually got held back. And so even though I always say that's a big decision that is not taken lightly, and I always say socially, that was the hardest thing that ever happened to me. But academically, I 100% believe that I couldn't have become the student I did if I didn't redo second grade, because at that point, I did not have the skills to go to third grade. And I also think this was in the 80s. So I think there's some leeway for more interventions now and more streamlined approach to different things. But sorry, we're switching out computers. We have all the things happening.
That's okay.
So just all of that, I didn't have the skills to move to third grade. I didn't have the reading skills and all of that in place to really move forward. So I don't really know. And I actually went back to the same teacher because she was like, well, now that I know what's happening and what she needs, like, let me have her again and we'll get her through it. So that's what my family did. And so I always tell people you really need to weigh it because it does have the emotional component, the social, all of that happening. But I also understand that sometimes you need to do that so that you can really I felt like my parents made a difficult decision that gave me the foundation to be a successful student in school. And so I stayed on that all the way through high school, helped self-advocate, and it's a lot of information here, but I didn't realize an IEP doesn't follow you to college. A lot of people don't realize that. So what we really should have done was transitioned me to a 504. A 504 can actually go to college with you. But luckily, my professors, I brought in my paperwork and went down to the note. You can get assistance in college for note taking, and that's available. And a lot of people, again, may hold back thinking, well, I barely got through high school. It was so hard. Like, how am I going to get to college or even a trade school? And a lot of times if you go in and talk to them, they're going to have an office that helps, provide accommodations, gets people set up for whatever they need. And so luckily, because I had all of that, the things that I needed, they were able to do. And when I went to get my speech certificate, the office said they couldn't help me because they said I had to reassess. And I was like, well, you don't not have a learning disability because you're 25.
Right, exactly.
So at that point, I went to my professors and I say, we had 2 kids. We were on a fixed income. I was trying to get through school. I did not have money to go get reassessed to prove that I still have my learning disability. And so she was like, well, what do you need? And so I told her what I needed, and they were accommodating. So I think that's another big tip I have for people is, sometimes I think not everybody, but some people have shame. Like I should be able to do this. I'm 25, but the truth is that I still needed those accommodations to be successful. And once I had them, I made it through. My big one is extra time on the test. Now, here's the really silly part. I never use the extra time. But if I don't have the extra time, the anxiety that I get of trying to process the test and the sentences and reading and recalling information, I swear my brain has like a trigger when it's like a test and my brain's like, shut down. We don't remember anything we studied. And so having that extra time, I got, so the first test she gave me, I got like a C, like a low C, like barely eked it out. She gave me extra time and I got a whole grade level, a grade up. And she was like, what? And I was like, that's just because my brain was like, we're not going to get locked out. So we're not going to get locked out. So, we can.
There's actual science. There's science behind that. When you're anxious or when you're nervous, that your brain doesn't process things. How we process things is in the back of our heads, and how it comes out is processed through the front of our heads. And so getting those things to coordinate with each other in order to be able to get any information out is very difficult. And so I've had several students tell me this, similar things like, well, I want the extra time, but I never seem to need the extra time. And I think that was why it was. And they didn't, as a kid, they didn't understand, that's what was happening is, oh, I'm more relaxed when I know that I have more time and I'm not going to be told, okay, time's up, you have to stop.
Right.
So, and something you said about the
going into that with the schools too, I think I didn't look, so don't mess it and don't offend anybody, but I didn't look how they thought I should look. So they thought sometimes, I think some of my teachers didn't think I really needed it. Like I was like, for some reason wanted it or was like holding on to it. And so I think it's really important to educate, especially at the high school level, about and having a good resource teacher. My resource teacher, they call it different things, different parts of the country. But so my interventionist where I went, who managed my IEP, who was my help be my advocate, several times had to go down and say, look, you don't have to understand it, whatever, but this is what's on the IEP. This is what we need to do. And I need you to not give her a hard time. And so really teaching your kids to be a self-advocate, understand, if at all possible, how to express that. Like I'm allowed to go to this room for testing. So in high school, I started going to a different location. It was very intimidating when the whole class is done with a test and you're still like 1/4 or halfway through, and that pressure that you're always finishing last. So for me, again, just leaving the area and going to a separate area for testing allowed me not to focus on the kids that are just really good memorizers that can just whip through the test, or the kids who are just doing a pattern and they don't care, but you don't know which one it is and you're finishing last. So just really, those were the type of things that I had to say, well, that's an accommodation in my IEP. And if you don't like it, we can talk to the case manager. But at this time I'm taking my test and I'm leaving, I'm going to the location. So, I think that's another reason why I have been able to overcome and do the different careers that I wanted and the different things, is because I reached out for help. I knew what things I really needed. And that's one thing that my elementary teacher, my resource teacher really, really instilled was, you're not dumb. Your brain processes things a different way. You learn a different way. And we just need to figure out what way that is for you. And then use these strategies. So I would say, I call them workaround strategies. And I just really encourage teachers to know that they are making a difference. Because like I said, I'm turning 40 this year and I still remember the workaround strategies, the words that she said, and her belief in me and the work that she did really helped me have the confidence to keep going, because she believed that I could. And my mom always laughs. As soon as I was diagnosed, the first thing I said was, well, can I still go to college? And my teacher was like, you're worrying about college? And I was like, yeah, I really want to go to college. So
in second grade, you were worried about college. Yeah.
I was. I wanted to go to college. I had this whole, thing. And that's the kind of student I was. And so my mom just laughs and laughs. She's like, that teacher almost fell off her chair when you said, well, can I still go to college? That was my biggest worry. But she assured me I could, and I could do it. And that this wasn't gonna, stop me from doing whatever I wanted. And so that's important to be, and you might be the only one in that child's life that believes that they can do different things. You might be the only one encouraging them and being that, because if different family members don't understand, different people, they might not be that source of fuel for that child. And that's really important for kids to hear, that they can accomplish the different things. And that if you choose not to do it, it's because you choose not to do it, not because of this label or, the disability. You might need, Hannah needs different walkers and gait trainers and different things. But when she has those things, she runs in the Special Olympics races and she participates in the different things with her assistive devices. And so sometimes that's all the kids need. And then they can be off to races themselves.
Right.
So.
Exactly. And that is exactly why I've started the hashtag No Limits, because as you mentioned for yourself, even in college, people were thinking that, oh, well, you don't have the learning disability anymore. It just went away. but so there was a limit put on you because they felt like it should have stopped and you didn't need these accommodations anymore. And you had to prove somehow that you still needed those accommodations. And with Hannah and all the limits that somebody would see her in her chair and think, oh, she can't walk. And yet you and your husband were helping her navigate stairs at a park. And that just is, that was one of the things that I thought, that's a no limits, because I'm sure at some point in Hannah's life, you were told she might not ever walk or she won't walk. And instead of accepting that and okay, you all have continued to help her, and she has the drive to want to do it as well. And the communication, I've worked with many students who are nonverbal, and when we found, what's the AA stand for? Augmentative
alternative communication. Yeah, it's a mouthful.
I always forget what I'm like. I know they're something like this, but yeah. And so when we found devices like that for some of our kids, and we were able to have them tell us what we kind of thought they were thinking, but it was always what we thought they were thinking, not necessarily really what they were thinking. And, having the ability to express themselves and get their thoughts and their wants and their desires out to other people. There are so many ways that people are hashtagging no limits for themselves. You yourself having a specific learning disability and being a mom, which is not a limitation, but it is in the sense that when you went to get that bill passed, they're like, well, who are you working for? Who are you lobbying for? We inadvertently put limits on people. And until we are face to face with the fact that you're trying to limit me just because of a way that you think, we don't realize that that's what we're doing. And so I'm hoping that through the hashtag no limits, and the more of these that get done and the more of these that are out there and the more people that watch them, that people will stop and think, am I putting a limit on whomever for whatever reason, by my thinking of, oh, they can't do this. As a special education teacher, I had parents and I had teachers telling me that there were people all around them telling them that their kids couldn't do certain things. And it just bothered me, because there's my dog. So, so I'm really thankful that you came on and shared everything that you shared today, because you don't realize that, I don't think, but throughout your entire time that you were talking, you were constantly sharing about limits that had been placed on you or on Hannah or on your students with, the veterans, the grown-ups who are first now getting a communication device. All of those things were limits that were put on those different situations, and all of them have been busted through. And so that excites me, because that's how we're going to change the world and make it a better place, is if we get the word out and we don't stop working towards busting through those limits and I don't think anybody puts these limits on maliciously. It's just the thought that we have, like, oh, they can't do that, or, oh, they don't need that. Like the parent you said that was like, oh, you're going to be that way. You're going to talk to me about when I die. But sometimes we have to, because we've placed limits that we don't realize we've placed on people.
And thinking it is somewhat working now, but it's not going to work big picture. And allowing him to have a voice that anyone can understand is really, really powerful. And so I appreciate you having me on and being able to talk about it. I think it's so important. One thing that we're always trying to really push with, especially with the AAC devices, is presumed competency, presumed the ability to learn. and see what happens when we do approach it that way and teach that way. And that's kind of the heart of what you're saying is let's presume that they can and see where they can go rather than putting a limit. Because if we set the bar here and then we never move it, then we don't know what their true potential could have been if it's never been offered or it's never been presented in a way that they could learn a different way to achieve it. So I do appreciate it, and I hope you have a good day.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us. Bye-bye.